Hi, this is Professor Tiffany Martin with Medical Microbiology, and we are starting Chapter 6, which is Microbial Nutrition and Growth. This is a short chapter. It's kind of a flashcard chapter. I kind of talk about referring to it as a flashcard chapter because there's a lot of terms to memorize, but not as many big concepts, and you can get through it pretty quickly. But do the memorization because they will come back throughout the course, and you want to make sure that you know what we're talking about. So let's go to the PowerPoint. Okay, let's go to the PowerPoints. Let's see, microbial nutrition and growth. All right, when we're talking about nutrition and growth, we're talking about growth, the requirements, the nutrient requirements, the growth requirements determine where a microorganism can live. So let me show you some pictures. Extreme variety of habitats. Okay, so we have this. Anybody know where this is? I'll let you take a guess. I may even put a question on there. Actually, go ahead and guess all of them. We've got this one, and we've got this picture, and we've got this picture. So I'll let you make a guess here. All right, so the top picture, I don't know if you got it right, but this is Yellowstone National Park. These are one of those geysers and those sulfur springs. They're hot sulfur lakes that they have in the park. This right here is the road. Those are people along this pathway, if that gives you some perspective into this. So this is extremely hot. It is a sulfuric, it's got an odor if you've ever been there. But this yellow, this red here, these are microorganisms. Microorganisms have adapted to these extreme environments and can live and thrive in these locations, the ones that are adapted to this environment. Just to give you an idea, they unfortunately have had hikers fall into these lakes, and within 24 hours, the only thing they've been able to find after 24 hours has been tennis shoes. It is that toxic and that issues. But microorganisms, the right microorganisms can grow and thrive in this extreme environment. Okay, moving to this picture. Did you get this one right? This is Glacier National Park. So you can see the icebergs in there and the flow from that. And this red here, this is a type of algae. So another microorganism that has adapted to this environment, thrives in this extremely cold environment that most microorganisms cannot thrive in. Not the same microorganisms that live here. Third picture, I don't know if you got this one right, probably not. This is actually a magnified picture, which I didn't tell you, and it is the surface of your teeth. We talked about that your teeth make a very good place for bacteria to adhere with those glycocalyces and those fimbriae, and they adhere to your teeth, and then they stay, and they are able to get a good source of nutrients. It's warm, it's moist, a good temperature. It's a great place for bacteria to live. If they live on your teeth and you don't brush them away, then they'll start changing, and they'll start changing what they can do, and they form that plaque, a very hard biofilm on your teeth that's very difficult to get rid of. All right, so lots of different habitats depending on what growth requirements and nutrient requirements the microorganism has, depends on where it can grow. So let's talk about the different categories of growth requirements we have. Okay, well, first thing we need to talk about is how they get chemical and energy requirements. First thing we want to talk about is how they get their source of carbon. Where does their carbon come from? We just had metabolism, and we talked about glucose being C6. H12O6, so there were 6 carbons there. All organisms need carbon. We're carbon-based life forms to survive. Where do they get that carbon? So we can categorize microorganisms based on how they get their carbon. Well, we know what we do. We are heterotrophs. Hetero means other, and we get our carbon from others. We get our carbon by catabolizing organic molecules from other organisms. We have to eat that banana, break it down into glucose in order to get carbon to build other things. So we are classified as heterotrophs. There are other organisms that are classified as autotrophs. They can make their own carbon molecules. They can make their own glucose from CO2. We can't do that. We do not have the enzymes required to do that. These are classified as autotrophs. What's an example of an autotroph? Plants. So plants are in this category. So the way a microorganism gets its carbon, or any organism, you can classify them as an autotroph or a heterotroph based on how they get their carbon. But there is another question. How does it get its energy? Remember, electrons transfer to make ATP. How does it get its energy? So we can classify it based on how it gets its energy. We are chemotrophs. We acquire energy through redox reactions, right? We just went through a whole series of redox reactions to make ATP. We do that. A lot of bacteria do that. A lot of organisms. We are chemotrophs. We acquire energy through redox reactions, respiration, fermentation pathways. Those are chemotrophs. There are some organisms that can use light as their energy source, and these are photo for life, light. Phototrophs get their energy as light. Now, we can put these words together. So take a second, and if you were to describe us and how we get our carbon and our energy, how would you describe that? Put these two words together, and I'll go ahead and put it on the next one. There are photoautotrophs, chemoautotrophs, photoheterotrophs, and chemoheterotrophs. So see what you can do with those. Okay, so chemoheterotrophs is what we are. We undergo aerobic respiration. We break down glucose and we get our energy from redox reactions. If an organism undergoes anaerobic respiration, that's the same thing. Remember, some weird bacteria do this, but they're still breaking down glucose from other organisms, and they still undergo respiration and redox reactions. They just have a different final electron acceptor. Fermentation, that's all in that category. Photoautotrophs, these are our plants, right? Plants, they produce CO2. They reduce CO2. They take in CO2 and can make carbon. They can make glucose from CO2, and they can get that energy by taking in light and undergoing photosynthesis. There are some photosynthetic bacteria that do the same thing. So there's bacteria that are also in this category. These are our biggest two categories, photoautotrophs, chemoheterotrophs, but there are a few weird microorganisms that can be in these opposite ones. So chemoautotrophs, so redox reactions, but auto, they can get their own CO2, energy from their own CO2. Photoheterotrophs, so they get their carbon hetero from others, but they get their energy from light. Did I say this one right? Chemo is the carbon from others. Auto, they get their carbon from themselves. They're able to make their own carbon using CO2, but they get their chemical reactions from redox reactions. Okay, make sure I said that right. Okay, so you should know this, and when you see these words, chemoheterotrophs, photoautotrophs, know that there are two things that this tells you: how they get their carbon and how they get their energy. Okay? Okay, so we will stop this